Okay, well, good evening, and we are reconvening our Lucan Biddulph Council meeting for September 7th. For those of you that are watching us online, we are just rising from a closed session, and I'm going to report back that staff was given direction during that closed session on a legal matter. Well, all around Lucan Biddulph, cheers of delight and celebration were heard from children and parents alike today. It seems that families have been waiting for this day, the return to in-person school, for such a long time. I am well beyond taking first day of school pictures, but I have to admit, I have enjoyed seeing the many shared pictures of kiddies so excited to be returning to school. And I wish everyone much success in the coming year. It is safe to say that this year will be like a year of like none other. And I know in speaking with friends today, the hope is that in-person learning will continue for the coming year. So fingers crossed that today marks the start of a great year ahead for all of you. I would also like to take a few minutes at this time to acknowledge a very significant milestone for one of our employees. Our CAO, Ron Raymer, is celebrating 30 years of service to the township of Lucan Biddulph. On behalf of council and our residents, Ron, congratulations and thank you for your dedication to our community. And I am glad and I am happy to welcome your wife, Lisa, who has joined us for this, the next few moments of celebration and recognition of you. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us. I know that many residents will remember Ron growing up in the municipality. And I think that's what strikes me the most, is the history that you have, not only from a council and a municipal administrative perspective, but sometimes more importantly, from a personal perspective. You have a dedicated staff who lead in our community because of your example. The council of today and days gone by have benefited from your knowledge and experience when it comes to municipal affairs. Personally, you have been a great sounding board for me and have helped to navigate me through my way through this municipal world. I don't know if you have another 30 years of service in you, but I know I can speak for our council of today, for our Lucan Biddulph staff and our residents, that we look forward to continuing to work with you, and we hope that you still have a few years left to serve Lucan Biddulph. And after the meeting, I will be happy to make my way down to your office where I've got a small certificate of appreciation that I'll be able to present to you. So congratulations, Ron. Thank you. It doesn't seem that I'm sure 30 years have flown by for you, but thank you for 30 years of service to a community that you not only work for, but you have personal roots in. Really is something to recognize. So congratulations, Ron.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thanks to council and thanks to my Lisa. I was wondering what was going on because I said to Lisa before the meeting started, why was there an email that said Lisa Korab is joining your meeting? Well, Lisa, you got a good poker face, let me tell you. But thank you very much. And like you said, 30 years has flown by. I don't know where it's went, but you know, and I think it's flown by because we have a great team. And when I say team, I mean we have a great staff, we have a great council. You know, so it's not like work when you're happy to come to work. And that's important. And we've done lots of good things, and there's lots of good things to come. And you know, I've got a great family at home.
Yes, you do, that support you and have stood by you through all of this. So that's quite evident.
But it's like I said, it's hard to believe that 30 years has gone by. I just, you know, when I got here, there was one computer. The treasurer was the only one with the computer. And Catherine, you'll love this. We actually sent the taxes out to an outside printer to get printed once a year. So you want stress? That's stress when you're sending it outside to get printed. I just can't imagine. But you know what? We survived, and you know this pandemic has certainly made us more appreciative of technology. I don't know what we would have done with a pandemic without the technology we have today. And you know, I think we made good use of it. And like I said, we have a great team and lots of good things to come. So thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thanks very much, Ron. Lisa, did you want to say anything as the supportive spouse while we've got you on? Nope. Okay, well, thanks very much and congratulations again. So with that, we will head into our regular agenda then. So we do have a public meeting with regards to a drainage matter, and I'm happy to turn this portion of the meeting over to Armin Crispell from Spreets, who's going to walk us through the climb and drain consideration report. Armin, welcome, good to see you. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You've just muted yourself, Armin. Oh. And I don't know whether there, now you're unmuted. Okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't know how to turn this phone, stop this phone from ringing.
No worries.
when I'm in this mode. So
no,
I'm just going to, just in case it happens again, I'm just going to try and turn the ringer off.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, so good evening, and I apologize for that, Madam Mayor and Council, and congratulations, Ron, from everybody at Spreet Associates here. We've dealt with Ron for these many years too, and he's always been a pleasure to deal with. The climb and drain is a drain built in 1968 that crosses Mitchell Line on the Vandenberg properties. I believe he has properties on both sides there now. The existing drain stops at Mitchell Line, and the request is that the drain is fairly old, undersized for today's drainage standards, and should be requested to be extended upstream to the Hugh Dietrich farm. And basically that's what the report provides. There's also the owners plan to do some private wascop berms once the drainage is being done also. So it'll consist of a 10-inch to a 16-inch tile. The old tile will be destroyed when the new one is being put in, and catch basins at the at Mitchell Line. The bore and crossing will, additional cost will be paid for by the MPO, and also there's a crossing of the fiber optic which will be charged to Quadro. Is everybody hearing me okay there? Coming through?
Yep, hearing you, no problem.
Total cost of the project is about $95,200, of which Mitchell Line is assessed between the special and the normal benefit and outlet about $36,000, Quadro $1,800, and then the rest of the cost is to the landowners. The drain is designed to a 2-inch design standard, so there is a non-grantable assessment to the properties, which is shown with an asterisk, and basically there's no grant on the increased cost of the tile size to what it would have been if it was just an 1.5 inch design. And that's why there are some double assessments for some properties. And I guess I'll open it up to questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Armin. So there weren't obviously any members of the public that asked to participate. I don't know, was there any other comments submitted? I don't think. So I will ask Council, are there any questions on this one, on this drain? This is a smaller project than many other drains that we've seen in the past, so. Councillor Regan.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I haven't heard the term double assessment before. What is, you have to explain that to me?
Well, you'll see where 1879517 Ontario Limited, for instance, is assessed twice, once for $337 and once for $30,955. The 337 without grant is what I meant by the double. They're assessed additional. I guess I should have said additionally for that increase in tile size. But by double assessment, I mean it's just that they appear on the schedule twice. The upstream portion would have been that size anyway because of it didn't really matter whether it was a 2-inch design or 1.5 inches when it gets across the road. So it's where it gets larger. Would have been a 14-inch tile for most of it instead of a 16 down to the bottom end. And this is where the increase comes in to make it the 2-inch design.
Right. Okay. All right. We're good. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, then the recommended motion that's in front of council is that the drainage report for the Climb and Drain 2021, as prepared by Spreet Associates dated June 11th, 2021, be received and adopted, and that the first sitting of the Court of Revision on behalf of the Climb and Drain 2021 be scheduled to be held on October 5th, 2021 at 9 a.m. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Westman and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. All right, thanks very much, Armin. That was quick and easy. We'll see you on October 5th, maybe.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
Hey, this evening, we actually have 2 delegations joining us this evening. And the first one is a presentation by our friends from the Lucan Irish 6 Hockey Club. And joining us tonight is Sandra Neubauer, the president of the Lucan Irish, and Tony Visca, who's involved with hockey operations. So welcome, Sandra and Tony. Good to see you. And at this point, I will turn it over to you. I know that we have a report that you've shared with us, but I guess I'm maybe looking to Lisa. Can you share the screen of that report, or can we get that report up for anybody that's watching on YouTube? Or Sandra, you can share?
Yes. Thanks, Mayor Kathy. If I could share, that would be fantastic.
If we can, there. Okay.
Everybody able to see that now?
We are good.
Okay. I will take it away then if the time is right.
Yep, go right ahead, Sandra.
Thanks. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Burkhart Jesselyn, council members, staff, and other guests. Tony and I are here this evening to chat with you a little bit about who we are, how we're redefining ourselves after 50 years of operation, why space is important to us, the current use of space for the junior hockey team in the community center, how we envision the future of that space, and how we can create a partnership together that will benefit the community. So my name is Sandra Neubauer, and I am the president of Lucan Irish Junior Hockey, and I'm very proud to carry that position. I'm the past chair of the league that particular team belongs to, and I'm also, in my day job, a professor at Fanshawe College. I think most of you here know that the Lucan Irish Junior Hockey Club is now more than 50 years young, and it presented itself with an opportunity to partner with Tony Visca, who is now working in consult with the Lucan Irish as our hockey operations person. Tony, I'll turn it over to you for a minute to introduce yourself.
Tony, you're not mute. You're muted.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight and along with Sandra to discuss these plans that we hope to embark upon. By day, I'm a practicing architect and a third generation builder. And so hockey has become a very large part of my life. I've been the CEO of Elite Hockey Consultants since 1998, where we basically specialize in player and coach certification across the province. And we're junior hockey owners and operators over the past 20 plus years. And we have a great time in building programs and, like I said, in developing players and coaches throughout the province. So this is quite exciting for us, and we look forward to the opportunity in working with the Irish and revitalizing and bringing back another generation of great hockey.
Thanks a lot, Tony. So just for some clarity, everyone, the Lucan Irish Junior Hockey Club is a nonprofit organization. So we are a corporate entity in and of ourselves and have partnered with Tony to help renew what Lucan Irish hockey is about in terms of how our hockey operations side looks. Today, we're here to excite you about the potential of a dressing room revival for the space that the Lucan Irish junior team is fortunate enough to call home. So that space, of course, is very important to our team and what we do and how we operate. So we've spent some time ahead of this meeting consulting with the following individuals that you see on the screen now. Spent some time meeting in the space with Paul, spent some time with Gregis Millwork and some others, a structural engineer, as you can see, and an HVAC engineer as well, in preparation for what we hope to propose to you this evening in terms of a renewal or revival of that space. In terms of our organization, I think it bears just a pause for a brief moment to think about the values of Lucan Irish Junior Hockey. And you can see those here in part of our mission statement. And that is active living, personal achievement, leadership, sportsmanship, teamwork, competitiveness, and of course, community service, which is required of all players and staff and volunteers involved in Lucan Irish Junior Hockey, because we're a volunteer community service organization, and we do that through sport. So one thing that's notable is that at least 3 of those values align with your values from the Lucan Strategic Plan document of February 2020, the service enhancement value that you have, the healthy community value, and the community pride value. So we feel like what we do aligns well with the council strategy or council vision. Thinking about a revival, we began to think about what this space means and why it is that we are hoping that you will agree with us that that space could use a revival. An improvement in the condition or strength of something, or an instance of something becoming popular, active, or important again. You can imagine after 50 years, an organization may start to get tired. It may start to need to look in different directions for its own self-improvement and its own purpose and position in the community. So I wanted to let you know that we're doing that. And part of that is to try to revive our space with a sense of place, and revive what we do in part by space. I'm going to turn it over to you, Tony, just to talk for 30 seconds about the importance of space.
As an architect, certainly this is very important in the everyday work that we do. The quality of space certainly helps one feel comfortable in how they work, how they play, how they feel. And but more so, if I continue forward in what we're doing here, it's actually bringing a quality of space that enhances what the athlete can do, and certainly how the people who work with the athlete can work a lot more efficiently and a lot more effectively. So it's really what we call a sense of place. It's also a sense of how one feels when they come to work every day or go home every night. And in this case, when the athlete comes to the arena. So the quality and the importance of space is rather important just in everyday living, but in this case, we're dealing with the athlete. I'll turn it back to you, Sandra.
That's great, Tony. Thanks. And just to draw everyone's attention really to the statement in the middle, I think speaks so well to what we're trying to achieve here, not for who we were, but who we're hoping to become. And that's where our focus has been in terms of our renewal from the inside out, in terms of what we're doing as a board, how we're functioning in the community, who we're involving in what we do.
Yep.
Moving on to help you understand a little bit about the current space. I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to actually be in the junior dressing room space recently. You can see I have on this slide circa 1976. And all of you that have kitchens at home, maybe you can think about why you renovated them. A similar thing is applying to what we're experiencing in the space that we have. Currently, the size of the space for a junior team is very much on the small side. We're dealing, I think it's important that you know, we're dealing with and working with 17 to 21-year-olds. So essentially, these are adult-sized bodies in spaces meant for minor hockey players. Currently, the space separates our goalies from the skaters. So in a nutshell, the whole team cannot be together in the same space because it will not, it's not adequately sized. In terms of reasonable distance, that's almost impossible. A social distance is certainly impossible, but even reasonable distance isn't possible in the space. Modern finishes in terms of our ability to clean and sanitize are difficult. Some safety concerns that perhaps Paul could speak to at some point if appropriate, related to the shower design. Certainly a lack of privacy when showering or using current restroom facilities. If the door is open, changing players are exposed to the hallway. We don't have a coach space, which is typical of most modern dressing rooms. Typically, they're small spaces, but there usually is one. And equipment storage is difficult. We don't have the ability to dry equipment at all. We have a small space underneath the stairwell for laundry, but no ability to dry any of the equipment or jerseys that do remain in the space. So that's a little bit about the present space. And we'd like to share with you the current or existing dressing room footprint. Tony, do you want to take a minute to speak to this?
Yeah, in assessing the current space, you can actually see the remnants of, the typical dressing room of the late 60s, 70s. And the anthropometrics of the room is typically designed for small kids. And so you can sort of see in the existing dressing area there where it says it can accommodate 20 kids. It's true, but it can really only accommodate 14 young men under today's standards as far as dressing rooms are concerned. So the goal and the intent in reworking this revitalization is to work within the confines of the two existing spaces that we currently operate in. We can continue from there.
Yeah, moving on to our plan, Tony, if you want to talk about our vision for modernizing that space.
Yeah. If you go to our next slide, Sandra, basically what we're looking for is to create more space for players to change and store their equipment. A space that can accommodate the goalies in the same place where the actual players exist, because a lot of the meeting with players occur in one open area. We need to provide better protection, of course, from just their privacy, but more so the difficulty in the current space is we need to provide the service areas to accommodate the athlete, where they launder their equipment, where they keep their equipment, how we can maintain the cleanliness between the showers, dressing rooms, and everything else. That equipment has to be stored somewhere. And one of the things that, I'm very concerned about is just its own artifacts in history. Where do they display their artifacts in history of 50 years? Which is something that, the community should celebrate along with the players and the coaches who have the privilege to play for this team. And then there's also the sense of creating that pride of being an athlete here and this quality area that they can come to. And it just forms that whole genre of how we anticipate this new revitalization to occur. It starts as a program, but it has to excel through what we do with the players, how we deal with the players, how we service the players, and ultimately how we respond to the community. So in a nutshell, in remodernizing the space, as we go to our next slide, here's our proposal where we are now adapting within the existing spaces that we have, using a lot of the standards that we now have in junior hockey as far as space allocation for players. We see a dressing area now to accommodate 24 players. Our showers are much more private. They're contained within the back of the space, along with where the other wet facilities are, the washing machine and such. But you can sort of see how underneath the seating arrangements there, we have an entire wall area now where we can properly store equipment, jerseys, and a multitude of other things that's required in terms of how the junior player needs to be serviced. But we could also see now where the existing meeting room that's there is now divided, where the meeting room is certainly, we call it a media room, in fact, where it could be used for players, for media, for presentations, and the executive of the team. But we've have the ability now to have a proper coaches room where they have the privacy, where they can do their work, and similarly have conversations privately with players. But in a nutshell, this footprint that we're working with is within the existing footprint, but more importantly, and I do need to bring this to your attention, is with our other junior teams, this is about 25% in space that's less. That, there's areas here that we haven't been able to accommodate, like where a player gets injured, for example, additional storage for for other things. So, but we're comfortable in revitalizing this thing. We're within the existing footprint and really not in a position where we're affecting the facility outside the walls that are current there. If you go to our next slide, you can sort of see, an image of the dressing area now. It's much, much larger. It accommodates the athlete a little bit better, much better, in fact. We modernize the wet areas, i.e. the showers, the washroom facilities, the laundry facilities. We have an ability now to store things correctly. And we're basically bringing this up to a standard that's indicative now of the modern athlete and the modern coach in junior hockey. And certainly I'm there for any questions if you want to throw any in. So Sandra, we can now talk about the commitment.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
In terms of thinking about what we're committed to trying to modernize that dressing room to meet some of the requirements of today's athlete. We feel confident that will attract more players and help give us a competitive advantage, through this idea of added value. Certainly create a more professional flavor to the space that players are in, address some of the safety concerns, absolutely, and privacy concerns that now exist for players that are of the age range of players that we have, provide a safer environment. For us, it's about the program. I think Tony mentioned that a few times, of the program and the development of hockey players. And we have some plans also with minor hockey. So we won't have time this evening to talk about those, but I want you to know that we are speaking with minor hockey and we have plans in terms of development all the way from the ground up. So helping develop our minor hockey players so that they are ready and competitive to make this junior team.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the execution in about the 2 minutes that we have left, Tony, could you tell us something about the execution?
Certainly, as a practicing architect and builder, we want to do this the correct way. We're planning on investing around $50,000 to update and upgrade this revitalization of the room. We would certainly come in there preparing the necessary drawings and doing what's required for permit under the statutes that are out there. I have been speaking with local trades and suppliers to assist us in this redevelopment work. And, you know, there's an excitement on their part to become involved in this revitalization. We certainly would like to get this started as soon as we can and sort of try to get it done by the end of March, if, you know, because we are now within the hockey season, so we sort of have to juggle a little bit. But we do want to do this in the correct manner and work along with the arena, you know, the arena staff, who's been really great with us, in fact, over the past month on helping us get into this transition and beginning to understand how we need to do things here. So, so this is our intent, you know, we plan to do this correctly. We plan to invest in this correctly. And, you know, we're doing this, you know, for the long term.
So a little bit in terms of the considerations, Tony, do you want to speak to those, and then we'll move through to the question period?
You know, we're proposing some of the considerations here that we can certainly discuss further along. But, you know, it's basically the intent of all this is to, again, you know, bring the standards up to current use as far as junior hockey is concerned. You know, we're looking at investing in this community over a long period of time so that we can build the program that will attract and develop local players. And, you know, we really want to share in this partnership with the municipality to make this, you know, an area that people actually want to come and play here. There's, you know, but so, you know, we can discuss these considerations a bit further down the road, certainly. It's more the intent that we want to speak of tonight. Sandra, you can continue from there.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tony. I'm just going to move it over now to questions that you might have. I wanted to make sure there's some time remaining for that, Kathy.
Great. Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Sandra and Tony, for that presentation. I think a number of us around the Horseshoe are very familiar with that space. And so certainly looks like an exciting project to undertake. Any questions or comments from council at this time? Anything? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, I'm just curious of the investment which you're willing to put in, which is awesome, to the considerations. And I apologize, I just don't know the math good enough. So forgive me for asking. The considerations to what you're putting in, what's the spread? What's the difference?
Basically, what we're saying here is for the next 5 years, with a renewal of 5 years, is the dedicated use of the room, which we pretty much have now. There's no, aside from the fact that, you know, the room will be available for special events. We're basically asking for improved access from the exterior of the building so we can get into the room. Okay. It's a logistical thing more than anything. Hopefully I realize that the committee room that's currently being used by the arena staff down the road will be transformed once they move to the other side of the building. Is that potentially half of that room we could also have access to become part of this revitalization of space. And basically from an ice perspective, is really try to balance what our ice costs are, because I believe our ice cost on Saturday nights, which is game nights, is different than our ice cost for practice. So we basically like to come up with one number that makes sense, you know, between the two. And really, you know, we want to offer to minor hockey a player and coach development session, an hour and a half of ice per week dedicated to that at a cost that's reasonable, so that charges back to minor hockey and players at a reasonable cost. So we're not trying to offset the $50,000 we're putting in with what we're asking from you. Okay, what we're trying to do is just have a more formal relationship in how we're using the facility. Okay, and that you know, that we have access to it when we need it, and that we can provide the right, you know, services to our players and staff when they need to get in the building. So that's
I found it interesting, the report, just with it, one long-term vision, which is nice for a user and for our community. And that was good to see. And then the investment, I think Paul will have to work with for myself, for my own self, my comment is, I'd certainly like to see Paul work with you guys on the pricing fluctuation or whatever you're looking for that would satisfy you, obviously, to that investment that really enhances our building in that room, which is very good, very positive. So yeah, no, it'd be it's exciting. I think your investment's exciting. Your future outlook's good. It's just a matter of, what is the difference to what maybe you're paying to what you're asking to a great investment in the community. And I just would need to get my head around that, but I'm not opposed to it by no means. I certainly don't want to come across like that. But I think for our taxpayers, if we have to speak to it, that's always what's important. So
Absolutely.
but very, very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
I do think that some of these considerations could be part of a future budget discussion as to how that looks, what that looks like down the road. You've got your hand up, Sandra. Did you have a comment?
Yes, if I may, please. I think, Dave, I could speak to, I think my internet might be unstable. Are you having trouble hearing me for a minute there? Okay. All I wanted to say very quickly, Mayor Kathy, is that Lucan has been known to have the odd VIP event, and that this space I could see being well utilized when we have VIP guests, such as Toronto Maple Leafs or maybe Ottawa Senators or other VIP guests. Fire and Ice might be another occasion where we've spoken to Paul about those groups wanting to have an improved, revitalized space to use for adults. So I can see that also being a win-win for the community itself and those VIP groups that would be brought in.
Any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Regan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. So as a teacher, it's a 10 out of 10. Thank you. I like the philosophy with respect to the attachment to the community. And I think and again, that philosophy about creating that space, and it definitely changes people's attitudes and that thing. So I agree with that. I also like the fact that it was like attracting people locally as well. So I appreciated that. And I thought that was well done. Thank you. But just a comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So I just have a couple comments. Excellent presentation, and I would agree with Councillor Regan. I think that and what Dave said about kind of the vision for the club, what you're striving to become, what you've got an outlook, you've given yourself 5 years to kind of become all of this. I think that's probably a realistic time frame, and that it is exciting because I think that is one of the things that has been difficult to maintain, is that relationship between minor hockey and the junior club. So cultivating that, I think, is certainly a step in the right direction. And I think we saw signs of that happening just prior to COVID, and we saw some excitement of relationships that the team was making with some of the younger age groups. But then, of course, the last 2 years have been a challenge. So on paper, I think it looks great. And you'll forgive me, and I guess, and I do say this out of the most respect for the club, but in the past, there have been some concerns about the financial situation and the viability of the club, and the township having to work with the club, for various reasons. And without having to give us, the dollars and cents, but is there how can the township and the municipality be comfortable that your financial situation is in order?
Can I answer that, Sandra?
And I'm going to add one little element to it after I lower my hand. Apologies that my hand was up for that long. One thing to say, Mayor Kathy, is your point is well taken and certainly not lost on me as leader of this organization for the past 5 years or so. And we've worked hard to ensure that we're not in arrears, as an example, with any of our ICE costs. But I can say we were quite fortunately the beneficiary of some funds from one of our previous general managers who passed away recently. So there's that piece that has provided us with a very small nest egg, if I may say so. But the other piece of our renewal involves this partnership. So knowing that alone, we weren't able to fulfill our mission, our mandate any longer because of changes in the world, but also changes to the sport of hockey itself, and very specifically junior hockey, which I don't have time to explain today, but changes in how junior hockey competes within itself now, if that makes any sense. We knew we needed to partner to improve what we're doing on the hockey side, because just acting as a closed unit wasn't enough. We have to be able to invite in minor hockey and other groups, but specifically minor hockey, and work on developing those players and a relationship with developing those coaches as well. And that's where Tony comes in. So over to you.
Yeah, our partnership with Lucan was, we came in, as I said to Sandra 2 years ago, when we started looking at the area and expanding our hockey business west. To satisfy your concerns, we're prepared to back the Lucan franchise. And that's why we're looking to you, say we want to invest 5 years, simply because we believe that as a junior market, it will become very successful. And I take very good pride in the fact that I've been a junior operator for 25 years and been very successful at it. So, I'm looking forward to this. I don't believe it's a challenge. I believe it's an opportunity. And, and one of the first things that I mentioned to the Lucan board when we first approached was the fact that the community itself and the pride that it has is 90% of the battle of owning a junior team in a community. And especially when you have 50 plus years of history behind it. One of my other junior teams just celebrated 50 plus years the same year that Lucan did. And it's critical. And, you're not around that long without a sense of pride and a sense of ownership, if you will. And, my group is thrilled to be part of this. And the hockey side, I know we'll bring extensive background. But our goal has always been the same. You make your players better, you make your coaches better, your programs better. And we witnessed that just with our recent prospect camp this past 3 weeks. We had over 50 kids at that camp, and the buzz around the arena was incredible. And, the fact that we were able to bring 3 or 4 local kids and sign 3 or 4 local kids to our team was very exciting. So,
and we're not finished yet.
That's right.
And we're not finished yet.
Well,
there, Kathy, it's a very valid point from a business standpoint, and I respect it. But I can assure you, they will not be in a position where they're going to be like that.
Well, I certainly appreciate the candor, and certainly, with the mayor hat on, always appreciate the investment in the community. And if it's hockey related, that's even better. But that's a whole other side of me.
That's right.
I do think coming out of this that we probably should have maybe a report from Paul at a next meeting in response to the presentation that we've had. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to receive the presentation for information, and that Paul follow up with a report at our next meeting in response to the presentation. And is Councillor Regan, are you moving that? And a seconder for that, please. Councillor Hodgins. And before I call the vote, is there any other discussion on that? I guess, Paul, did you want to make a comment or anything?
I think that's appropriate to you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, that's great. So with that, all opposed to that motion? And that's carried. So thank you very much for spending some time with us tonight, and we appreciate the report, and we look forward to following up with you. Okay,
Thank you very much.
great. It's
Thank,
nice meeting
thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah, good
Bye.
night. Okay, our next delegation is a group from the Middlesex County. It's a Middlesex County Archives presentation, and everybody's just kind of jumping on now. Lisa's just letting them in. Just give it a minute here. Just, I see Dr. Elliott has joined us, and I think Carol's just joining or trying to hook onto the audio, it looks like. Oh, we lost someone. Dr. Elliott, you might be on this on your own if you're. I'll just give it another minute. Maybe Jackie and Carol are joining in.
Kathy, Dr. Elliott's the only participant at this point that logged in.
Okay. Well, I guess with that in mind, Dr. Elliott, are you prepared to go through with the presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, joining, you were supposed to be joined by Jackie Martins and Carol Small. Maybe they've run into some technical issues, but at this point, I will welcome you, Dr. Elliott. Thank you for joining us, and I will, oh, I said Carol's coming on now. She just needs to turn her camera on, but I will turn it over to you and we can get going.
Well, over the last months, you've been inundated with material that we've sent out pertaining to the need for county archives, and I hope that you've read it. And there's still some more to come. And until Carol gets on, I want to emphasize the fact that we really do need an archives for our historical documents. All of us probably have our biggest investment in our property. And if we ran into a legal issue regarding our property, whether it was the title or things that had happened in the past pertaining to our property, we would have to have an awful lot of legal research done. And in my capacity, I work for lawyers periodically and trying to sort out problems of property and wills. The problem with Middlesex is that all of our land title books, the original abstract books, and also the instruments of the deeds have been shipped off to the provincial archives in Toronto because they did not have room for them in London. And so if you need to have that material searched, you've got to go down there in person. But they also have a problem in that they don't have room. And so the provincial archives has put an awful lot of material into offsite storage. So you may go down, you find out what you're looking for in terms of the titles you need, and then you have to wait till the next day to have them delivered to the archives. And then you may have to go through that again and again and again as you start searching further back in the land titles. And so it can amount to thousands and thousands of dollars of extra expense because we don't have the documents here where they should be. And the same thing with wills. A lot of the wills have been sent off to provincial archives. And again, that means that there's an awful lot of time spent in Toronto, and the necessary expenses for housing and travel and meals while you're waiting to get that information. And so it's a very personal thing for all of us that, you know, we could be impacted by the very fact that we do not have a provincial, county archives here, as many other counties do have. Until Carol comes on, do you have questions that have been generated by the documents that we've sent you?
Okay, does anybody have questions for Dr. Elliott? Carol's on, she just doesn't have her camera on. So I don't know whether you can hear me, Carol, and maybe turn your camera and microphone, or at least your microphone on, if you've got anything to add. So I guess while we're waiting, are there any questions at this point about the archives? Okay, well, I guess maybe I would ask this question, and I think I might even know the answers, but can Western's archives help at all, like their storage facility? I seem to think that they're not accepting new material, because I can remember a report where they're sending their archives off as well.
Yeah, they're not receiving any new material, and actually they're sending material back to other agencies that contributed to those records, because their own mandate is for the university and some of their corporate sponsors that they are housing their records. Western has done a great job in the past, but they can't do it anymore for the Middlesex County.
Okay.
I see Daniel has a question.
Councillor Regan.
Thank you. Sorry, David, I was going to wait for the mayor to say it was okay. So I'm just wondering, when we're going through archives, we had a discussion at Summerfest. I think the mayor was there, and we were talking about, I just found it kind of interesting that we're talking about archives, and the archives are looking at all for any place. And how do we know, I guess my question is, how do we know what archives we purge, which ones we keep? Because they were talking about things that may not be as important. As a history teacher, I teach a number of subjects, but I'm just wondering, just like where do we get that line? Because we're talking about storage space. So what's important to keep, what's not important to keep? Like, so where do you draw the line? Or is that a question for you, or perhaps one of your colleagues?
The provincial government has mandated what materials have to be kept, and they've produced a record management document, which every municipality should have and should be following.
Mayor Burkhart-Jessen, I am available now. I'm not sure what was going on. Technology is wonderful.
I think it's the tornadoes in the area and the storm. I think that's what we can blame it all on, Carol. So.
I do like that, Mayor Burkhart-Jessen. You'll go with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll turn it over to you now.
Do you have our presentation?
I think somebody does. Can somebody pull it up on the screen?
If not, I'll try and share it.
If you can do it, it's probably easier on your end. I think there's screen sharing that's available to you.
Yes, there is. I just have to pull that up. I had it already, and then when everything went, I'm just going to have to pull it into my file again.
Okay.
I understand our group had presented in Strathroy Caradoc had problems with theirs tonight too, so it has to be the storm. file. I'm going to have to go out. If Tina can pull it up, I have sent it to her,
Okay.
and that would be wonderful. Anyway, I do want to say thank you for allowing us to come tonight and present to you. We have with us David Elliott, and you've been talking with David, and he's quite knowledgeable in the field of Irish genealogy. So I'm sure the good people of Lucan and Biddulph are interested in that. And I don't see Jackie. Jackie was going to join us. Tina, are you having any luck pulling up that screen?
It looks as though she's looking.
Sorry, I'm just running the video on my iPad, so I can't pull it up, but I have sent it to Lisa and Ron.
And I've got it running on the other computer, so let me bring it up on the laptop so I can share it. One second here.
We have found that with rural network, internet work, that running it from our homes doesn't always work.
Yep, that is the big delay. That's the big stumbling block, right? The internet in rural Ontario, Canada.
Yes.
Okay. You having any, oh, there we go.
Thank you. Yes, this is, we're a group that we've put our aim right into our name. So you've got our aim right there. If we can go to next slide, please. You have been getting lots of information, so we are fulfilling our goal, and I hope we get an A+ for that, because we've been sending out lots of stuff and lots of material that I found very interesting, even having worked in an archives for some time as a volunteer. Next slide, please. The legislation does require that you retain some records. You do have a retention policy, and basically the legislation requirements say that you need to have those records accessible and in a timely fashion. Go to the next slide, please. These are old records. They are actually 1851 records. So if you went looking at yours, they would look something like that. And no, they're not a municipal record. Those are from the London Township Agricultural Society's first meeting. Next slide, please. Why would you want to see these records if you've never seen them? Well, those records are the basis for what you do now in government. You go back, you'll find some of the things that they were talking about then. They were precedents for what you do now. And sometimes it's good to go back and just check those records, because we think we know what's in them, and then we check, there's maybe not, they've evolved a bit, but it's always good to go back and check the records. Next slide, please. We know that all municipalities are working on digitizing your records, but are you keeping the original copies? Our first computer here at home was a VIC-20, and we've seen all the ways of storing material from those computers all along, from a 5-inch floppy disk to a 3-inch to a DVD to USB, and now the cloud. That's probably over 30, 40 years. Are you going to be able to retrieve those digitized records that you're doing now in, say, 30, 40 years? If you keep the original copies, you can always go back and look at the originals. Next slide, please. this is where some of the records used to be stored. I'm sure that after 20 years, things have changed. But can you go find your records now? Next slide, please. Are they stored in environmentally controlled conditions? Because if they're not, you're in danger of losing them to mold, fading, and drying and getting brittle. So we need to have them in environmentally controlled conditions too. Next slide, please. No, you're not going to see your employees sitting there with their feet up on their desk and looking out the window and twiddling their thumbs if they get in archives, because they don't have to look after the records as such, but they will be doing tasks that are more engaging, demanding. They're going to, their work is going to be different, more efficient in the areas that they're assigned to, and you're going to gain some space and use your space more efficiently. Next slide, please. Professional groups, all these groups use the archives and use them well. We know from the Middlesex Center archives, but the greatest growing group that use archives are genealogists. And genealogists spend money. They go to various areas that their ancestors were from. They create tourism, and they bring in the tourism dollar, because once they've visited the archives, they go and see all the other amenities in the area. And it's culture that's going to bring in tourism to the area. And heritage is part of that in our archives and museums and all the other parts of culture. Next slide, please. History records. The history records what's happening today. As I used to tell my students when I taught them, and some of those were good Luke and Badal students too. Don't waste this second, you'll never get it back. History records what's happening today. It also has recorded what's in the past. Let's look at COVID-19. That's happening today. It's being recorded. There's even been people referring back to the Spanish flu of 1918, and there's some great similarities there. So maybe we should learn some from history. But local history also gives a community and people a sense of identity. It gives them community pride. And that's important in today's world of Middlesex County, because our communities are bringing in a whole lot of new residents, and history and heritage is one of the glues that can bring these two elements of former residents and new residents together for pride in their community and a sense of identity, and work together to build that community. Next slide, please. All archives have this type of collection, these many records in their archives. But I think one that we should really look at is the Indigenous people's history. And that's going to become very important as we go down the road for the reconciliation process. Next slide, please. All archives charge fees for service. And no, they'll never make up the cost of running the archives, but there are fees attached to them. Next slide, please. Take a look at that map. Do you see that white space? That's Middlesex County. Those green ones all have county archives and have had them for some time. Middlesex County is one of the oldest counties in this area. It's one of the ones richest in history, and yet we're without a county archives. I find it hard to believe. Next slide, please. Why do we need Middlesex County Archives now? Through every generation, our older senior citizens have told stories, and as they die, the stories die. And in our historical societies, and even in our archives, our groups are aging, our volunteers, they've worked hard, they've collected much material over the years, and there's a lot of historical societies a lot older than the Middlesex Center Archives, and they've got tremendous collections, but they're getting older. They feel that they just cannot carry on, and they're worried about their collections. Who's going to take care of it? Because people are not coming on to take over their role. Next slide, please. Middlesex County, and the other reason is Middlesex County is changing its location from downtown. It's got to move. So if you're going to move all those documents out of the county building, and some of them are archival, why wouldn't you move them once to a Middlesex County Archives? Next slide, please. If Middlesex County Council went through with giving us Middlesex County a county archives, it would be seen giving back to the community, and it's investing in local history and archives. We know that we have support from the Middlesex County residents. The county archives is needed to save what's out there and celebrate what's going on in our heritage. And you know the old adage, pay now or pay later, it's going to be more expensive later. So next slide, please. We've got some choices here. We can lose more. You've all seen dumpsters backed up to houses and everything being thrown out. Fire, nobody ever wins in a fire. Flood, how many of you have had experiences trying to rescue your basement when the sump pump doesn't work? Rodents, insects, and mold are all things that give rise to destruction of historical documents. Next slide, please. So you've got a choice. We can lose more of our heritage documents, or we can save them more by building or establishing the Middlesex County Archives. And that's what I'm urging people to do. I thank you for your time. And if you've got questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation, Carol. And thank you to Dr. Elliott for his words. We started with questions. Are there any other questions from the presentation? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit more of an explanation. Like, so is this something the county, as opposed to the municipal government, gets more involved in, or is this something that should be at the county level as opposed to our level? Or I just was wondering about clarity, whether on that, what your thoughts are.
Are you addressing that question to me, Deputy Mayor Manders?
Well, since we also have the warden, also, it's interesting. I'm not sure who I'm throwing it to, but hopefully between the two of you.
You want to take a stab at it first, Carol?
Sure. A county archives is a county matter. Why we're bringing it to the municipal councils, we're bringing it to you for information. We've been sending you information. That was our goal, to get information out. And we wanted to talk to the local councils so they would also have the information and know where we're coming from. Yes, it is a county matter. We will be going to county on September 28th to make a formal presentation and ask them to establish a Middlesex County Archives.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So yes. Okay. No, that's what I was just curious. Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarity.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our friends? Councillor Reagan.
sorry if I missed this, but so the archives, would there be a central location for the archives, or is this going to be each municipality would be responsible for their own archives, their own their climate controlled rooms, those sorts of things, or is this just one central location? It's a big county. So I'm just wondering, I'm just thinking about all those archives and also about access as well. So is it centrally located, or is it something that's going to be in each municipality?
Ideally, we would like an archives, a total county archives, much as Huron County has, Lambton County has, Elgin County has, Oxford County has, Berks County has, Grey County, Wellington. They have county archives, and there's no way a local municipality could afford all those little archives. And what you've got is, for example, and I use this example all the time, believe it or not, I'm not originally from Middlesex County. I've lived all my adult life here, but I'm originally from Berks County, and that's where my father's family is from. Now, when I go up home, if you think I want to drop into Milne, Walkerton, Paisley, Tara, Chesley, all the way up through to Tobermory, to all those places for an archives, no. I want to go to Southampton, to the Berks County Archives. I want to do my research there. Then I will go exploring and spend my money in the rest of the county. So ideally, we want a county archives. It's up to the county government where they put that archives and how they build it, or whatever, just to meet archival standards. That's up to the county. We don't mandate or say anything about that. That's up to them. That's in their court.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your passion on this project. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I would encourage anyone, once things get opened up more, that if you have not made a trip to the Middlesex Center Archives, that you take advantage of the days that they're open. Trying to think, you usually have an open house in February or March. You have your archives day. And if we're lucky enough in 2021 or 2022, excuse me, I would encourage you to take a look at the work that the Middlesex Center Group has done. And that is in part to the work that Carol and David have done. And they've got a whole team behind them as to the archives that they've collected from Middlesex Center. It's quite impressive, actually. Any other, were you going to say something, Carol?
I was just going to say, thank you for your kind words, Mayor Burkhart-Jessen, but I'm not sure if your group is aware, since we originally established the Middlesex Center Archives with the support of our council giving us the actual physical archives, we've had to expand twice. We now rent Annex A for processing and storage, but because of the COVID-19, we've had to rent Annex B, and the materials that are coming in is phenomenal. I think I just about heard one of our volunteers scream from down Annex B, which is down on Longwoods Road, up to the archives, when she opened up an envelope and out fell a poster for the first Poplar Hill picnic in 1920. We've never seen one before, and it was in pristine condition. So those types of finds are just the kinds of things we're looking for. And to have the municipal archives together, that's a big thing with the total archives concept.
I might just ask a question, since you brought up the Poplar Hill poster, just on personal collections, because obviously from a municipal standpoint, we have our own records retention bylaw. I know that, our documents are stored. And then of course, we're in the process of digitizing them. But, you mentioned all of the other things that make up an archives. And so I know that, as you said, you're coming to County Council at the end of September, and you'll be looking for an investment at the county level for this. And you talked about the fees. I guess if you have a personal family collection, do you just donate it to the archives and hope that they look after it? Or do you have to pay to donate it?
No. You bring the material to the archives, we'll get you to sign a deed of gift, and you go onto our website and look up forms and things, and you'll find our deed of gift there. And by that, you're signing over the rights to it. If there's something in there, or you want to put a stipulation on it, and I did this when I donated my letters for my family from 1839 up to 1974. I put a stipulation on because some of those were personal and up to the dates of some of us were still living, that if somebody wanted to copy them, they had to ask permission from me first. But those types of things, it'll ask you if you want them back, if they're no longer or don't have pertinence to our archives. And if we find some materials in there that may be pertinent, say to Elsa Craig, to Strathroy right now, we will take and ask to send those over there. I just got a request, an email last week from Elgin County with a donation from Wisconsin, and it had something pertinent to Middlesex Center. So yes, we're getting that.
Any other questions for our presenters tonight? Comments? So as was mentioned earlier, this is a decision of County Council. So certainly the information that was shared, and if my colleagues have any comments that they would like me to consider when it goes to County Council, you can certainly pass those on to me as that decision will be made in the next month or so. If there aren't any other questions, then I would thank Carol and David for their time tonight. I appreciate the presentation. I'm glad that we were able to work through the technical difficulties and have you here with us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Burkhart.
Okay.
Jeff. Thank you, councillors.
Have a nice evening.
You too now. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so moving on to through our agenda, just as the rain has started to fall. You might be able to hear it. It's kind of coming in loud. We'll move to the minutes, and we have 3 sets of minutes in front of us for consideration tonight from August 10th, which was a regular council meeting, and then the special meeting minutes from August 12th and August 24th. And if there wasn't anything to be amended, I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those 3 sets of minutes as circulated. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Westman. All opposed? And those are carried. Business arising from the minutes. There's a number of ongoing items on there. And I believe one of them we're going to talk about later. And I think the dog tags report might be coming for the next meeting. And the others, as I said, are all ongoing. Was there anything from our minutes that council wanted added to the business arising? Okay, then we will move on to correspondence. As always, there's a number of items that have been received since our last council meeting. The first one that has been pulled from our list of correspondence is a request from a resident to extend or to waive the noise bylaw for a wedding that they'll be hosting on their property. And I didn't know if there was any discussion on that. It is a request that we've seen from time to time. If there isn't any discussion, the recommended motion, actually, I should note that the request was that the noise bylaw be waived from 8 p.m. to 1, but actually the motion will state that actually it'll be waived from 12 p.m. to 1 a.m. just to take into effect that the wedding preparations and all of that will be going on all day, and there could be elevated noise levels during the day. So I think you've got the recommended motion in front of you. It is quite long, so I won't read the whole thing, but if I can get a mover and a seconder for that motion, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Regan. All opposed? And that's carried. Moving on to the balance of the correspondence. I think the very first one had to do with municipal modernization money. And when I was speaking to Ron earlier, he wanted to speak to that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first letter there, or the first item of correspondence, the municipal modernization program intake number 3. What the deputy clerk and I are looking at is possibly applying for some grant money to fund a contract person or contract position to assist us with our digitization of all our records. That's a lot of work, and it's not an easy job to sort of fill in when you know the deputy clerk or people are not busy doing their other jobs. Everybody is busy right now, so it's a difficult one. I think we're hoping to have a report for council to consider at the next meeting. So just a heads up. Okay, great. I don't know if there was any other ones that council wanted to speak to. I might ask Lisa about the one about the RED program opening up, and were you looking at possible projects to apply for in that? We've been successful with that program the last couple of years.
Yes, I will be looking at that once I am back from holidays next week.
Okay, that's great. Were there any others that council wanted pulled for discussion? Seeing none, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive those items of correspondence for information, please. Councillor Westman and Councillor Hodgins. All opposed? Carried. Moving on to committee reports. Blue Water.
No, nothing to report.
Okay. CEDC.
No report, thank you.
Lake Huron, primary water, we don't meet until October. There's no fire boards, and actually, I guess I should note, I don't know whether you saw that, Jeff, the standing committee that we're supposed to be working on towards our new governance model. There was supposed to be a meeting next week, but that looks as though it's been postponed again. So we'll update you on that when that new meeting happens, or new meeting date comes out. Nothing from fire boards, I don't think. ABCA and Upper Thames. Alex or Councillor Westman?
Yeah, not a lot to report. You know, the parks are open in the Upper Thames and for general day use and seasonal camping. The gypsy moth problem, they've been working hard on it all summer and had I think really good success in dealing with the caterpillars and cleaning that up. I hope you can hear me. I'm in my truck. I'm getting rained on pretty hard here. But yeah, we're getting ready to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority. That's coming up. There's a luncheon on the 16th. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend it due to work commitments. But yeah, it's you know, always lots going on with both conservation authorities. We did have some discussion with the Asable Bayfield about returning to in-person meetings, and that doesn't appear that it's going to happen right away. You know, there's a fair consensus of people that are saying they're not ready to do that. That hasn't been discussed at great length at the Upper Thames yet, but I assume it will come up in the next little bit. We are gearing up for the fall. We did have some discussion about some property matters with the Upper Thames. There's a number of farm properties and rural residential properties that are owned by the Upper Thames that they're looking at what their displacement will be, what they're going to do with them. And that may be a matter of ongoing discussion for the next year or two. There are some requirements of the province that we will need to consider as well. So, yeah, there's always lots going on, but this is a good time of year for people to get out and enjoy the green spaces, the parks, and the conservation areas and trails. There's lots to see. The weather's starting to cool down a bit, so it won't be such a chore to go out and go hiking and exploring. So we do kind of hope that people will get out and enjoy. That's it.
Well, I actually did that on Sunday, and I took my pup for a walk through Rock Glen, and I'm pleased to say she navigated her way through the rocks very well. So it was good. It was a good day. Any comment or questions for Alex about ABCA or upper temps? Okay. Parks and Rec, I know you had a meeting, but did you want to report on that next meeting?
We'll bring the minutes forward at the next meeting. But I just thought it's important to let council know, Amanda Morrison, we thanked her for her time with our committee, but she's had to step down as she is moving to another municipality. So thank you, Amanda, for your time. Short with us, but it was still beneficial and great to have you. So it's important to know that. We're not going to meet again until there's no date set for it, because we want to wait until it's aligned more with when we know more with the project, what the timeline is with that. So we'll keep council posted to the next meeting, hopefully at the next council meeting with the minutes.
Okay, excellent. Any questions for Paul on that? Okay, on to staff reports. Ron, I think you've just got a quick verbal report.
Actually, I don't have too much, Madam Mayor. Being the first day of school, I have to thank Maggie and Julie in our office for doing the crossing guard training last week. We always do a refresher course before the start. We feed them, we give them coffee, and go through all the safety procedures and make sure their equipment is up to snuff and everything else. So thanks very much to those two for doing that. But yeah, there's no change to personnel for the crossing guards, and again, we thank them. It's a kind of a thankless job, and they're kind of like the postal workers. Rain, no rain nor sleet will hold them from their job. So they don't get paid a lot, and they appreciate the thanks we give them. So thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you for that, Ron. Tonight, we are actually joined by our Chief Building Officer, Arnie Marsman, and I'm pleased to welcome you tonight. I don't believe that you've had the opportunity to meet our new counselor from Ward 2, Jaden Hodgins, so this is a virtual introduction between the two. Arnie joins us a few times a year to give us an update on our building stats. So over to you, Arnie. Great to see you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and congratulations to you, Councillor Jaden Hodgson. I'd like to first start recognizing Ron, and congratulations to Ron as well. I've worked a long time with Ron Raymer through the years, so you've got a gem there. So congrats to you, Ron. So I'm here tonight to present a mid-year report to Council, and first, I'd like to apologize on the tardiness of this report. It is to the end of June, and we are in September now. It's been a very busy year, and I'll outline some of that in the next couple of minutes. But going forward, my intent is to bring a quarterly report to Council, and hopefully within 3 weeks or so of the end of each quarter, I'll be speaking with you, presenting what the status is of activities in Luke and Biddulph. As most of Council knows, Middlesex Centre this year, we've had a request from 3 other municipalities in Middlesex County to join our building services group. So we've brought on North Middlesex, Adelaide Metcalfe, and Southwest Middlesex. We've also increased staff at Middlesex Center. We've hired 3 new building inspectors. One was planned based on the activity of last year, and we brought 2 more inspectors on to assist with the new activities with the western municipalities of the county. So I'm happy to say that things have gone really well with those municipalities, and I'll be meeting with their councils in the next couple of weeks, presenting a similar report to them. So we've got a really good team. The guys do care, and that's important, that when we're working with cloud permit and processing applications, that you've got buy-in from the team. So I'm very happy to say we have a really good team. And I'd like to also shout out to Maggie as well on your side, that she's been a great support person to our team. So high five to Maggie as well. The numbers for this year, pretty impressive over the past 4 years. This is the 5th in a row now that really our numbers have been exceptional, and there's no sign of a slowdown right now on our end. Middlesex County has been an attractive place for construction and residential primarily. And Luca Midolph this year, we're at about 40 new residences at the mid-year. Last year, it's hard to compare numbers to last year because last year there was a lockdown and permits were really held up. Last year at this time, I think we had 5 or so new houses or new residences. But by the end of the year, we had 75. So once the lockdown ended, last year really took off, similar to the last 4. So happy to say that construction is healthy in Luca Midolph. I think those are my points I'd like to provide to council this time. So I'm certainly open if there's any questions about what the report says or any other building activity.
Great, thank you for that update. Any questions on the report that's been submitted as part of our package? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Just wondering, as new projects that you've taken on in other municipalities and even our municipalities, when subdivisions get approved and start to roll, like Elsa Craig, might be 2 years away. We're not unsure on ours. We always get the question on the school board and their readiness for kids and going forward in that. And we all, obviously the answer back is school board takes care of that. They take, but in this case, we're relying on obviously you guys to stay on top of approvals for subdivisions and growth. So we should never expect to hear back, oh, there's a subdivision approved, times are tough, or there's restraints on us. Like, we should never hear that from you guys, right? You guys are on top of approvals and things that are approved. You know the growth. I mean, it's monthly, it's there. You see what's going on. Like, there is a large concern on the staying up with approvals and abilities to maintain that. But that's not our concern, correct?
Yeah, a couple answers through Mayor to Deputy Mayor Manders. A couple angles to your question there. With regards to the schools, I think you initially reached out, or you started your comment with regards to the school board. And we've been reached out from staff at the Thames Valley District School Board. They've reached out to building division and planning, Middlesex County planning this year. Something that's somewhat new. They've requested building permit information and development information so that they can plan for their schools a bit better, I think. Maybe county planning can speak to that as well about the requests that they've received. But that's a positive point, I think, that the request from the Thames Valley District School Board to building division shows that they know that they need to observe the growth in the county and where it is. And even at early subdivision design stage, the county planning is providing information to the school board. With regards to building division and keeping up with construction, it's something that we are keeping an eye on. Even Middlesex Center, we're busier this year than last. So we're constantly evaluating, do we have enough staff to maintain our timelines? We want to get a building permit out inside of 10 business days. So that's important to us that we do maintain those timelines, and we're certainly keeping an eye on the development. You don't want to be caught with a slowdown and a lot of staff. So it is a balancing act. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, well, it'll be a little bit blunt, but the school board comment was more on if our staff and us as council have a concern on that, it's more or less losing my number. All kidding aside, it is not our problem. We don't deal with that. We got a call from a builder, and there hasn't been any. But again, as you know, in 2-3 years, hopefully we'll have 135 acres, future residential approved. Again, the areas that you said you're taking on, there's going to be a lot of different approvals coming out their way too. Unfortunately, when someone calls, what I mean is our staff, you obviously have to be ahead of that because it is our problem. School board one's easy, not our problem. Here's a phone number, call it. My concern is that, again, that you guys are proactive and able to, handle the services as you take things on. Maybe the things aren't very busy right now, but as things that get approved, things are going to get busier. And again, I just hope that it's not a case where, we got caught off guard ever as a comment. That's my comment.
Yeah, and through the mayor, they're good comments, and we do monitor that, absolutely. And those have been concerns of ours for several years, being able to monitor what's coming down at us. And I suspect, this time next year, we may see another body in preparation for the new development. But our goal, like I said, is to maintain those timelines. Certainly building permit fees do pay for the service we provide. So if we're going to be busy, we will have the finances there, the capability to hire that staff person. And again, it's all self-funded through building permit fees. So
thank you.
Any other questions or comments while we've got Arnie with us? Councillor Hodgins.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot about supply chain issues and material shortages across the construction sector. I'm just wondering if that's had an impact on the building development.
Yeah, through the mayor, certainly has. It started with windows. I've heard now that everything from a certain type of brick and shingles to wires of electrical wire for wiring houses. I understand some electricians or some stores are rationing out spools of electrical wire. So they don't give out 10 or 20 spools at a time. They might max out at 2 or 3. And even PVC piping or ABS piping for housing. It's all in high demand right now. This region is just, like I said, it's booming. And the builders really have done well in maintaining closings in 4 to 6 months. They've been rationing it out well. Even the trades, sometimes it's tricky to get a trade, but they're doing it.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Arnie, can you just clarify for me, just on the reports that you've, or the tables that you've submitted? I'm a little confused because on table 1, on the number of permits under single family dwellings, you've got 29. I guess maybe I'm answering my question as I'm saying this out loud. And then on table 2, new dwellings is actually 40. So the new dwellings, that includes like your townhouses or apartments or stuff like that as well?
Yeah, through the mayor, it includes semi-detached and townhouse units. So those 3 we group as dwelling units rather than singles. So the number of new dwelling units comes up to 40 when you add those 3 categories.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, one last call for comments. If not, then I would ask for a motion to receive report number BD-02-2021 for information, please. A mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Hodgins and Councillor Reagan. All opposed, and that's carried. Once again, thanks for joining us, Arnie. It was great to see you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care. Catherine, Finance.
I think I don't have any reports. Just wanted to mention we're just into the budget season, so stay tuned for some dates and notes regarding that. Other than that, we also have year end coming up. We're in the home stretch of this year. So that's all. We're busy.
Did you get much response from the online budget survey that was sent out?
We did get a good response. I'll be bringing that information to council once I get it more compiled and we get to review it as staff in the coming weeks.
Good.
So once we get further along the budget process, that will be fully presented to council.
Yep. No worries. I was just curious. I was thinking about that on the weekend. I wonder what the response was like. So thank you for that. Any questions for Catherine? No planning. Public Works. Jeff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Tonight I have 2 reports and a couple of verbal updates to go over with everyone. The first report will be our sidewalk evaluation conditions. This report comes back to council from a request through council that I bring information back on the current conditions of the sidewalks in our municipality. And in conjunction with that, at the same time, we were working on updating our road and sidewalks conditions through a program with other municipalities in the county through Street Logic, which came out and did that. So it was a perfect timing to bring this report back with the findings that Street Logic brought forward. So in the report, I'll go over a couple of things in the report. The first one is that there is 20 kilometers of sidewalk in the township, and 83% were classified in good shape. So that's something to be said right there. When you look at the lower ratings of poor or very poor, we're 6% for poor and 3% for serious conditions. And when we talk about serious conditions, the Street Logic looked at cracking, tripping hazards, and surface conditions. Just for people, a hazard is classified as a surface discontinually greater than 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch. So the one thing that we did not include in this was the AODA compliance. So even though we do have some sidewalks that maybe need to be upgraded due to their sizing, right now what we're more interested in is the conditions and the hazards that are out there. So going back to the area that we do have some problems in, I wanted to point out that 50% of the sidewalks in those areas that are serious or in poor shape actually are in Alice Street. I don't think that's any secret, and that's one of the reasons why currently we're looking at doing engineering on Alice to correct that problem. So that's good. One of the things that did come through on this was that we do have some hazards throughout the network of sidewalks. Just because a sidewalk section may be deemed in excellent condition doesn't mean that there isn't an actual surface condition that needs to be reviewed. So Street Logic provided that. We have actually the locations throughout the municipality, and already starting to look at staff, and we're going to go out and we're going to start marking some of these conditions, and we're going to move into this fall, look at whether we do some patching or we do some grinding, and to make sure that that by the end of this fall that we have some that we don't have any large or any trip hazards that constitute that we have to correct right away. Because once you do the inspections, there's a time limit on this. We can't ignore it. So we are moving forward, and by the end of this fall, we'll have things corrected. And again, I don't think it's overly good. I think the good news is that we're on the right track, and our sidewalks are doing well. So I'll leave it at that and open up to comments.
Okay. I already see hands up. So Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Sorry, Jeff, if you mentioned this, but when you talked about the trip hazards, until we get them fixed, are we marking them in any way, shape, or form? I don't know how that's done. If I don't know if that's where we spray the fluorescent paint on them or not, but I did get a question, and there was one, and it was just down the end of Nicoline, and I'm sure there was others, but there was just one about marking it, and it was just one of the sidewalk, one was a little bit higher than the other one, and people were just tripping over that. I know because I tripped. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to mark those until we get them fixed.
Yeah, and through the mayor. So that'll be the plan, will be to mark all the spots that need to be addressed, so that we can highlight the hazards, allow people to see them, and then take care of them once we're aware of that. So that'll proceed. You'll see that happen in the next 2 weeks, and we'll move forward from there.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. I'll try to be more careful. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Manders.
I was just going to say, Jeff, that Alice Street, it's interesting, and I assume even from a maintenance standpoint, after a winter season, it's probably your most expensive time to repatch that sidewalk also with the guys, I'm thinking, that needs the most attention in the spring. So I'm glad to hear that that's a area of that you're going to be dealing with. I'm just curious, when do you think, will you be replacing those sidewalks then, or?
Yeah, and through the mayor, deputy mayor. So the idea is the Alice Street is on our asset management plan is our next project. So the engineering is taking place right now. And once we have the engineering in place, then we'll present to council at budget time whether they want to move forward with Alice Street next year. And we'll have some preliminary numbers for the budget and where the funds are coming from and that sort of thing. So the idea is to bring forward that to council, and if that's a project that moves forward next year, that'll be a council decision.
Well, that is I realize that the county typically, is there any history of the county cost sharing anything on sidewalks? Any history of that at all? Some funding?
And through the mayor, the boulevard sections, even on county roads, become the responsibility of the lower tier. So even though it's a county road, Alice is a county road, they maintain the road itself, but when we go into the boulevard, it's still the lower tiers that maintain that.
Thank you.
Is Alice Street supposed to be from the county level? Are they doing work on that next year too? So it'll be a whole revitalization of that street, right?
That's correct, man. We've tried to coordinate with the county. The county's been very flexible with that because they know Alice is not a small project. We have water main issues, not issues, I don't call that, but they're, again, in the asset management plan outlines, one of the reasons Alice is on there is the water main. And we also have a couple of sanitary issues to correct on Alice Street. So they're aware of it, and I've been in discussions with the county, and they're very flexible. So the idea is to do it all together.
Right.
And in fact, there'll be a discussion on if we do move forward with Alice and Saintsbury, if there's cost savings to look at both those areas at once. So.
Any other questions or comments on this particular report? Councillor Hodgins.
When it comes to just doing the annual maintenance and going out and addressing, I guess, spot repairs and eliminating trip hazards, is that then work that is done in-house with township staff, or is that contracted out?
And through the mayor, that's a good question. So previously, what we have been doing is looking at removal and replacement. So we find some large sections that are broken down. The staff that we have work with a local contractor, and we get pricing on that. So it's a combination when we go to take and remove and replace. We provide a dump truck and a backhoe, which are our units. And then we work with the contractor, and he finishes and puts the sidewalk back in. Now, a follow-up though, this fall, we're actually going to rent a sidewalk planer, and our staff is going to go out and mill down trip hazards, as well as we can patch gaps in the sidewalk, which we have on Alice in the past. And so, yeah, so it's the maintenance side is a combination. It's a combination.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, then we do have a motion to accept report PW-19-2021 to receive it for information. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Manders and Councillor Westman. All opposed? That's carried.
Okay, Madam Mayor, my second report is one that stems from the master servicing study that was just completed. I'm bringing forward this report, and it's based on the important recommendation from the master service study on flow monitoring. As we are aware, the master servicing study, when it was looking at the sanitary flows of our mains, was a desktop operation. So they use calculations and base it on, overall, what am I looking for? The square, I don't want to say square footage, but the area that goes into the mains, they calculate what's going into the mains and use that as a base and figure out the flows. They've outlined, obviously, in the master service study that through the desktop operations, we are reaching or getting close to capacity on some of our main sections. So the next step in that would be to actually get real data on the flows so that we can then use that real data to actually fill in the gaps and come up with a real capacity on our sanitary mains. I think this is really important for a number of reasons. One, it'll identify where we need to upgrade. We have current developments out there, and this will show where those developments will reach capacity on our sanitary mains. It'll also, number two, identify needs for upgrades for the future, so that if we do approve further developments around town, this will give us the heads up before those developments come to light, and that can be part of the planning for those developments rather than being behind or improving the developments and then finding out where our capacities are. So I think for future development, this is huge as moving forward. And then the third one is it's going to allow us to coordinate our asset management plan with growth, so that we already know that we have some issues on our sanitary means, and once we get the flows, this will be able to coordinate the growth and the replacement program that we have in place. So I think the real-time flows will give us some direction on our asset management. So the flow monitoring program, it needs to take place during a high flow season. So we need some high flows, some rain events, probably what's going through Lucan right now. And that way we can see our infiltration calculations, because we'll find that, and it's quite common, this is not something new that's just in Lucan, but we'll find that there's infiltration from the older sections of town a little more than the newer sections. So, but this gives us the numbers. We got to find out where those numbers are going, because a lot of in our newer subdivisions actually flow back through the older part of town. So we got to trace out exactly where, how much infiltration is coming into the system, and work that out back to the outer rim. So we have to do that. And as I touched on in the report, we'll start at the Chestnut Pumping Station. It's the center of town when you're talking sanitary. And then we'll move out to the outer rims and find out exactly our capacities. When we look at budget-wise on this, cost to record the flows and analyze the flows, I've got a cost estimate of between $40,000 and $45,000. To manage the project, it cost about $5,000 in engineering costs. With a discussion through Matt Pearson at BM Ross, who did our development charges, this is a recoupable cost through development. So as we develop, we will regain this back through the development fees. It's not in there right now, but it will be presented as a cost to the development charges. And that's basically the report. I think everybody's aware that this was coming. I think the master servicing study brought this to light, that we needed to focus on some of this flows out there. So I'll open it up, Madam Mayor, to questions.
Great. Well, thank you very much for that, Jeff. Questions on this? Councillor Regan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jeff, just wondering, just when you're talking about, just for people that are watching, maybe, or just for education, when you talk about pinch points, maybe explaining what that is. And I'm just wondering, is that those pinch points created because of design, or because of the size of the pipe, or the volume that we're experiencing? And is it something that's really critical? So again, just, I mean, for people that are, just for myself anyway as well, but just for people that might be just listening into this.
Yeah, Madam, through the mayor. So if the best way to describe pinch points is with our center pointing being Chestnut, the Chestnut Pumping Station. If you picture it like a wagon wheel, and everything moves towards the center, and it so as everything from the outside flows in, the interior sanitary mains gradually get more and more flow. And so once we get close to the center, we are down to, I believe in the Chestnut Pumping Station, there's actually only three sanitary mains that actually feed the system. With one sanitary main probably accounting for 80% of all the flows in Lucan right now. So as we keep adding on another development, we got to know where those developments are coming through the wagon wheel, and working its way to the Chestnut. So those pinch points are the laterals that are meeting up and joining up and then continuing on towards Chestnut. A good example of this would be, for instance, the newer part of Old Clover. If you were to drive in Old Clover off Richmond Street, those row of houses in there flow back into the development, go back out to Main Street, down Main Street, exit and head off to the south and go down Elm Street, and I believe over to out through Princess, back through an easement to William, over to Frank, and then over to Chestnut. So you can see how everything is connected like a spoke, and as you flow through, even though you think something can go one way, it can travel south and then head back north. So the pinch points are where all these join together, and as we keep adding these developments on the outside, it's worked. But now we're finding that as we move to the center of town, we have some capacity issues.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Jeff.
Deputy Mayor Manders.
Hey, Jeff, just a couple of questions. I'm sorry, I'll have you repeat it. Maybe it's in your report there, but just the when approved today, start time, length of time, and does this then recalibrate the number of units? And I forget now, right now, I've heard it lots of times, you have 345 units able to build in Lucan or whatever it is, 330. When this is done, will will this tell us then, good news, there's 420 units now, or bad news, we're down to 120 units? Is that what we should expect at the end of this? So start time, length of time, and does that give us a new number of units?
Yeah, so through the mayor, so the time on this is 3 to 5 months for measuring. And then I would caution that we should have a little bit of time for analysis and bring back to council. When we at the end of it, there'll be two things, and I know where you're going, Deputy Mayor, on when you're asking about units. The first thing though that I want to make sure we point out is that the first goal of this is the capacity of the water mains or the sanitary mains, not so much the capacity at the plant. Okay, so this is our goal right now, is to find out how our sanitary mains are making out and what they can support through our development. Having said that, the plant's capacity is built on infiltration of water and flows. So when we get real flows on the sanitary means, there'll be also a reflection back to our capacity at the plant. We've always been a bit conservative because we don't want to draw things right down to the line, but there definitely will be the ability to have a better handle on the flows going into the plant also. Will it take units away? The odds are the desktop is much more conservative than the actual flows. So the idea here is, after talking with BM Ross, who did the master study, is that there actually should be more room than what the desktop shows. So our sanitary mains probably have more capacity, which then when we get that nailed down in our infiltration unit numbers, better handle on, we can then look at what our plant capacity is at. It's not going to open up capacity for like 100 homes. We know the flows, we know what a single house is going to do, but what it'll do is it could be a difference of 30, 40 homes. Yeah, it will be. There'll be a better idea once we get closer to the capacity, but this isn't about extra capacity at the plant right now. This is about capacity in the sanitary mains. I hope, does that answer your question, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you.
I know it's a little bit confusing because we're talking two different capacities.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
And one thing I should do, and I forgot to mention this going through my report, is on our cost estimates. We did go out and get costs from two different companies on the flow monitoring. So that's not just one company. We did go out and get two different quotes from two reliable flow monitoring companies. So
I guess that's the question, is this isn't work that we can do ourselves, that it will be contracted out?
yeah, I think, Madam Mayor, this will be contracted out. This will be a company that specializes in this, and they'll be able to tell on the data and be able to provide information on the data that they get back, and then we'll go from there. I would recommend that, because BM Ross is in the middle of this, that they continue to be the engineering company that monitors this, and we go from there.
Councillor Hodgins, I think I saw your hand up.
My question may have just been answered, but I was just going to say it's great to see this coming so quickly. I think we recognize after the master servicing study the urgency of getting this information and data to keep moving forward. So that's great. My question was going to be about the, I guess the recommended motion and how how we're proceeding with this procurement, whether it was going to go through BM Ross or whether it's going to be a request for proposals going out for companies that do flow monitoring. Just wondering how we're moving forward with this.
Yeah, through the mayor. So just to elaborate a little bit more. So we did reach out and obtain 2 quotes from with BM Ross's help, because the guidance there on what we need to do comes from them. So the majority or a large portion of the funds are the flow monitoring. And that'll be, well, I would recommend that I'll move forward with the lowest, obviously the lowest quote. Both are recommended companies. And then the engineering and the analysis will move through BM Ross and to follow up the master servicing study.
You good with that, Councillor Hodgins?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, any other questions on this report? And then I guess just to be clear, because, and you did mention it, but I think it's worth repeating, that we can recoup the costs through the development charge, but it's not in our development charge now, but it can be added on to future, and we can then essentially go back and pull that money out, right?
Correct, Madam Mayor. And in discussions with Matt, as we do these projects, even on the other projects, even if it's a project that's already in the master servicing or the development charges, if we find out that costs are rising or the costs have increased, we can always go back and recoup through development.
Okay, good.
So even a new project like this, we can move forward with and then enter it in, or we can always go back on an old project and recollect. So.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that. If there aren't any further questions, you do have the recommended motion in front of you that report PW-20-2021 be received, and that council directs staff to proceed with sanitary flow monitoring, and further that council directs staff to recover all or part of the costs of this study through a future development charge levy. I can get a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Regan and Deputy Mayor Manders. All opposed? And that's carried. And I think you've got a couple verbal updates.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So the first one is one I bring back. I think it comes back to council every year. The Miller Group, or the Miller contractor that does snow removal for the MTO, they in the past have looked after the connecting link, which is our section of downtown, and they've forwarded their maintenance contract to us. It's the same as last year, with an increase of $216 or 3% over last year. Basically, it's the same maintenance. We just have to move forward with it. So I just thought I'd bring that forward with council, though I think Tina's provide a bylaw at the end to move it forward. But does anybody on council have a question about the maintenance of the connecting link? Okay. My second thing tonight is the Roman Line Bridge replacement. I've been contacted. The contractor wants to start right away. We're going to be sending letters out to all the residents in the area and posting signs shortly on the Roman Line closing. It'll be closed from Mooresville to Whalen Line, which I know will be a very inconvenience to a lot of the farmers that will go through corn season and wanting to come down the Roman Line. But unfortunately, we're at the mercy of getting this started now at this time of year. So by the middle of September, we should be in the middle of that project and have that bridge replaced before the end of the year. So that's good news. Another update, Julie finished up one of the last meetings on her health and safety She's been looking at some policies and some guidelines for the municipality. She finished up one of her last meetings with the group, and she's just got to provide the information to the department heads, and then there'll be a follow-up with council on the health and safety material that she's working on. Speed signs are going up in the school zones. We're back in school. I think we have one down on Beach Street as we speak. And we'll have one over on the Roman line shortly. I wanted it there, but we're just adjusting the speed on it. So that'll come up. And lastly, the RFP for the sand salt shed should be going out shortly. We've just reviewed it in-house. We should be sending it out to contractors and start moving forward, securing something for a contractor for next year. So the idea here is to, because I'm being told a lot of this contractors are already booking up projects for next year. It's a very busy time that we want to secure the sand and salt shed for next year. So we're going to move ahead with the RFP this fall on it. So it's going to go out shortly. And that's my last verbal. So I'll just, Madam Mayor, I'll leave it there, and anybody's.
Okay, thank you very much for those updates. Jeff, that was great. Any questions on either the verbal updates that were given or any other comments from required from Jeff? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Not maybe looking for an answer, but more an inquiry, just the salt sheds. And since we've got to do that, and probably the scope of size will take into account of growth, and maybe will we be able to get development charges to pay for that growth for sizing and the rate sizing of the shed? Maybe you've already said that.
Madam Mayor, and through the mayor, we actually have that in the development charges as a cost now. So even the and once we do this project, we'll reevaluate the development charges. And again, if we're not collecting enough currently, then we will adjust and yeah. So a good part of that will come back through development charges.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Jeff? Okay, thanks for that. Moving on, Paul, Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have any formal reports today, just a couple verbal updates. The Ontario Trillium Foundation released Community Building Fund for revitalizing existing sport facilities. So I will be, just to make council aware, I would like to pursue this for the Grant and Ball Diamond, as we've had some complaints in the Grant area about that field and its need for improvements, which aren't due for at least till 2026. So I'm just looking at it right now to put the grant together and hoping to have a formal presentation for council at the next meeting, as it's not due until the 29th of September. And moving on from that, as well in Granton, the playground has been installed. The only thing that's holding off is the wood chip for the back structure. We're just waiting. We had to wait for it to dry out. Obviously with tonight, that's not helping, but we're hoping to get back there and get that filled in soon. So the kids are already enjoying the other structures, and there's been some pretty good feedback about it. So I'm quite happy on that one. Other than that, I think that's only the major stuff I have for council.
Okay, thank you for that quick update, Paul. Any questions or comments for Paul? Councillor Westman.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I went down after the playground equipment was opened up and spoke with some of the parents and families, and they're just loving it. There's so many new features there for every age group. The little toddlers, the 2-year-olds were spinning little colorful things. The 12-year-olds were climbing like monkeys. It was great. And just an incredible process. I couldn't say more positive things about it. It's just amazing, and everybody loves it. So thank you very much for all the hard work.
Any other questions or comments for Paul this time? Okay, Lisa, Economic Development.
No formal reports as well, Madam Mayor. The only thing I'll just say, hopefully for the next meeting, we'll have a summary of Summerfest and the budget for the end of that. So that's everything. Thanks.
I think it was a successful venture. Certainly Friday night, there was lots of people out. Saturday, there was a little hot, but still, I think a good turnout. And it's, you know, I think certainly people were looking for other options than cooking both Friday and Saturday night, because I think the food trucks did quite well. Any questions or comments for Lisa? Okay, moving on.
Madam Mayor, sorry, just one more thing. We have the industrial lot closing. Tender package is closing this Friday at noon for that one lot. So we'll look to have a report again to council following that as well.
Great. So if anybody watching wants to get their envelope in, I'm accepting it till 5 o'clock on Friday or 4 o'clock.
It'll be until noon.
Oh, till noon. Okay.
Yeah, the information is on the website.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Any questions or comments? Sorry for Lisa. Okay, moving on to councillor comments. Any councillor comments? Deputy Mayor Manders.
Just Ron, when is, I had wrote down that maybe a stewards report and public meeting OPA was going to be September, October. Do you have any timeline on that or anything?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have an exact date yet. We'll be talking about that, because I know Jeff and I were saying last week, this is taking too long. What's the plan going forward? So we'll be touching base with him to get a date anyway.
Yeah, because then from the date, it's 21 days notice to the public.
Correct.
Yeah, because I had September in my mind, so that's out. So yeah, no, if you could, thank you. Maybe don't need it on Business Horizon, but I'll probably ask at the next meeting, or I assume you'll be updating us. Thank you.
Jeff, did you have something to add to that?
A little bit, Madam Mayor, I wanted to follow up to the deputy mayor, because one of the comments that he did ask me about the sand salt shed and the development charges. I just wanted to clarify something. There will be a combination there, because we are replacing something that's not totally development related. So I didn't want to make it sound like I was in that discussion that there was not going to be, that it was all going to be covered under development. That's not true. Only the expansion or the extra size can be put towards development charges. A replacement of it still has to fall under the normal municipality, and I think I made it sound like it was going to be all development charges, and that's not the case in the sand salt shed.
Great, thanks for that clarification, Jeff. Councillor Regan, was your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have two inquiries of Paul, if I could. The first one has to do with the cannon that's out in Market Street. I know that there was some talk earlier about doing something with that. I was over there and sort of weeds are going up through it, and there were one or two residents that did mention it. I just wondered if there was a bit of a status on that. Is there a project update? Are we going to be doing something with that? Perhaps renovating, moving it, getting some better use out of it?
To you, Madam Mayor, the artillery gun in Market Street Park is not the cannon. I've been corrected.
Yeah, I have too. So yeah, okay.
I've reached out. So since this, I think, goes way back to 2019. I've reached out to several different places, even the RCR Museum, and I got put in contact with the Ontario Regiment Museum, which, funny enough, March 6, 2020 is when I had my last communications with them. So as you can see, right after that, we got a bit derailed. But yes, it's something I was going to be bringing up in budget discussions. At the time, I was trying to find out cost to restoring the artillery gun, as most for grant purposes, but most companies that we got put in contact with only do the stone monuments and cenotaphs. So there's a lot of frustration with them as well, for them trying to find the proper people to do this work. They are happy to provide advice. I did reach out to Glavins, as sandblasting and recoating is one of the things that they did recommend. They would provide guidance on that. So I was just trying to get some budget numbers together, but it will be something brought up at budget. We did talk to the Legion as well about potentially moving it. They were a little, they like the idea of moving it closer to the Legion, but maybe not necessarily on the Legion property. I know there were some concerns about insurance, because kids like to climb on it, and if a kid were to fall and so forth. So we are looking at some ideas. One idea is maybe, now that we've removed that tree that was dying in that old paver stone walkway, that we may build a new entrance to the park there, that we could, it'd be a nice, wonderful entranceway to the park, and, right kitty corner to the Legion for the Remembrance Day ceremonies.
Okay, thank you. I just have one other item for Paul, if I may. So some time ago, I know there was some land the township owns just off of Saintsbury, and there was some discussion, sort of that odd shaped piece of land. There was some discussion about maybe doing some park development, maybe some tree planting. I haven't heard anything moving forward. I'm just wondering if there's anything in the works, if there's any plan for that.
Yes, thank you again to you, Madam Mayor. We did do some tree planting this season. It was the portion that we got approved through for the ABCA for the naturalization. The second phase that we had proposed with the community forest, the Lucan Community Forest, we did not get a grant for the from Tree Canada. Their grant system closed up. They weren't able to do their grants this year because of COVID. And they did say to us that our project was well looked at and graded very high. And they encouraged us to apply again for the same project. So I know the ABCA and myself have discussed it back and forth, and they said there's lots of other grants that may open up again. Now that COVID's, we're getting used to living this way, that the grant money's flowing again. It's not as held back because with the what ifs. So there is opportunities, and I think as they open up, we'll bring it back to council again for discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Great. Thank you for those questions, Councillor Regan. Any other councillor comments tonight? I just have one, and that was last week. Councillor Westman and I were able to go to the Granton Post Office to congratulate and thank Vicki Baker for her just about 36 years of service to the Granton Post Office. She's retired and she is moving actually out of the community with her husband for a new venture. But I know that if you didn't see it on social media, certainly the community got together for a farewell to her. Alex and I got to spend some time with her on Tuesday morning, and anybody not only in Granton but Luke and Biddulph probably in particular, would know Vicki and her family. And it was a fun fact. I learned that her family has been responsible for that post office for just about 80 years. So there'll be new faces there, but we can expect the same sort of service. And we certainly wish and thank Vicki we thank her for her service and wish her all the best on her new endeavor. Moving on, there's no changes to budget. Any notices of motion? So we will go on to our motions for today. So the first one is council authorized Rhonda Frater to enroll in MFOA's Municipal Finance 101 e-learning course offered through AMCTO at a registration cost of $659 plus HST. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Westman, Councillor Regan, all opposed? That's carried. And then I'm just figuring out that if no one cares to speak to this bylaw, and this is bylaw number 41-2021 on its third reading, that it be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, and read a third time and passed. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that? And that's for the Blake Drain Addendum bylaw. Councillor Regan and a seconder. Councillor Hodgins. All opposed? Carried. And bylaw number 59-2021. And this is the one to adopt and confirm all the actions and proceedings of the council of the Township of Lucan-Biddulph at the council meeting held on September 7th, that if no one cares to speak to bylaws 57-2021 through bylaw 59-2021 inclusive on their first, second, and third reading, that they be considered to have been read a first time and passed, read a second time and passed, read a third time and passed. And a mover and a seconder for that one, please. Councillor Westman and Deputy Mayor Manders, all opposed, and that's carried. And resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:55 p.m. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Regan and Councillor Hodgins, all opposed, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.